Hi everyone, welcome to How Do You Meditate? I am your host, Tyler Gravely, meditation teacher and wellness consultant. I am so grateful that you are here. This podcast is all for you, and it's about making meditation accessible and understanding what the journey can be like to travel inward. I believe that when we are seeking some form of meditation, we are seeking a lifestyle change that builds our strength mentally and physically, something that helps us find acceptance and unlocks the possibilities that are waiting for us. Meditation really is this beautiful opportunity to heal and transform the outcome of your future. You can expect to hear stories on how others find wellness in meditation and how they incorporate it into their everyday life. I promise that you're going to hear something in each episode that helps spark the light in you to shift and take control over your own mind. You might laugh, you might cry, and you are going to transform the space within so that you can answer the question when asked, how do you meditate? Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of How Do You Meditate? I am so excited to be here with you today. If you can't tell, the podcast is actually a year old this month. Can you believe it? I can't either. I'm so grateful for you all that have listened over the past year. And I just want to share, as I was looking through some photos the other day, wow. If you are somewhere in your life and you think, I can't do that, that would never happen for me, or, whatever the thoughts that come up that prevent you and they provide you with resistance instead of action. Oh man, if you can get through that, which I know that anybody that's listening can, because that's my kind of people that listen to this show, you totally can get through it. I saw this photo and I used to record, actually. I didn't have a computer at the time. I had bought the microphone and gosh, I'm going to make this like a whole episode, but I bought the microphone. I was sitting on the ground and I was recording. I had to teach myself how to record on an iPad using an app called Anchor. And now we're like sitting at a desk and we have nearly 5,000 downloads in a year. And that was my goal. I wanted to have 5,000 downloads. That's what I set out to do. I just can't even believe it. It's so exciting that you've all been listening. And originally my intent, with COVID that was happening, I was like, if one person listens, at least I helped that one person. And I believe we're up to it, according to the stats, we have 60 listeners. And in a whole year, and I'm so grateful for you. One of the ways that I would love it if you would take a moment to write a review for the show. That really, really, really helps get the show out there even more. And if you are gaining benefit from listening and you know somebody that could also benefit from listening, please share this with them as well. I really set out, my intention was to talk about meditation in some way, some form, somehow, because the conversation around meditation is so interesting. And when we sit and we chat about it and we get it out of our head and we get into this creation mode of what is really going on and happening, you start to see that so many of us have the same thoughts and the same resistances, and we're all so much alike as we travel this journey within, and we start to really recognize like who's really talking right now and what am I really feeling in my body and how do I really gain access to shift that so that I'm in power of what I want to choose to think about and what I want to choose to take action on. And by no means is this anywhere easy, because if it was, then we'd all be doing it and like whole world would be crazy, like incredible. But instead we see things on the news that we don't want to see, and belief systems that are instilled in each and every one of us, and habits that we take on, and the list goes on. And one of the things that's really coming up for me in this moment is choosing between what would spirit do, what would my highest good choose to do, and then what does human instinct compel me to do? What is that about? Because human instinct more than likely always takes over. It's the one that tells me what to eat when I'm hungry, how to survive. And it's always going into this like keep me safe mode. Whereas human spirit is the mode where it's like you take a breath and you choose not to flip off your ex when you see him driving down the street. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Oh man, that is real. That is real talk right there. So today on the show is my best friend, one of my best friends, Mariah Andrews from the Plantiful Pantry. And I absolutely just adore what she's up to because she keeps coming back on this show and she keeps sharing her Ayurvedic wisdom with us over and over and over again. And if you haven't, which I know this is not true, but I love keeping stuff on the real. And I love wanting to get into like, what are you really thinking right now? Like what's really happening for you? And Mariah does this with Ayurveda. And Ayurveda, of course, is this sister science to yoga, and it's all about plant-based eating and eating medicinally to help you with your body. But she keeps it so simple. And I know that the latest crave right now is oat milk, and we get into the different milks at the end of this episode, the benefits of the planet on what milk to choose. And she just gives such wisdom and such acceptance. And she's like, it's okay if you don't do X, Y, and Z. Like, she's just such a really beautiful human being. And she's so non-judgmental and she's so accepting and she's just a doll. And her business is all about, you can do it from anywhere in the world. She has a program called Jumpstart, and it's about recognizing and getting into this plant-based world. So easy and so simple. And so if you've been thinking about it, this episode is totally for you. There's something about when you choose to really get mindful about your eating habits, it's like almost a spiritual practice in nature because you're having to choose human consciousness, that what I just talked about, like not going with your instinct. And you're saying, okay, I'm making choices about what I'm putting in my body today. I'm making choices, good choices that keep me at a high vibration, that keep me in an alignment with who I really want to be in the world. And as I was talking to another girlfriend yesterday, and she's going through something with her ex as well, you know, she's like, I got to get off the phone because I need to go raise my vibration. I'll call you back. And I was like, that's so awesome. Like, we're choosing to sit in that higher energy. We're going to get our energy up. We're going to lift everything up so that we're not playing in that other realm, because the other realm doesn't serve. It just doesn't. It doesn't serve anything. There's no purpose behind it. Sure, you can be angry and you can feel that anger. And when we put some things in our body that aren't welcoming, like we'll get into all of that in the show, it's definitely one of those things that we want to stay in that higher vibe so that we're really taking care of ourselves and that we can really be the people that we want to be. Because if you know anything about consciousness and mindfulness and choosing in the other realm, when you stay there in this like drama loop, you don't feel any better. You know, and humans are all feeling based. So like when you're in that drama circle, you're not getting anything out of it. Like, what would I get out of flipping off my ex? Sure, in the moment, I would have felt great. It totally would have felt good. But at the end of the day, I would have probably felt guilty and shameful and like, no, he's like a good human. Like he taught me some good stuff, a good lesson. And you know, that's human spirit talking. That's human connection. That's staying in possibility and standing for the other person no matter what. And that's really what I'm going to stand for. So it's okay to feel what you feel. And it's all about making the wisest decisions possible. Because the planet needs that right now. You need that, and you deserve it. And you deserve to feel good about every choice that you make. So you can find Mariah at the Plantiful Pantry Co. on Instagram. She also has a website, www.plantifulpantry.com. You can join her program, Jumpstart, and you can get all into it about all the plant-based dieting, eating, and I don't even like to use the word diet. It's more about like a lifestyle change in order to lift you up, no matter what. So without further ado, here is Mariah. So Mariah, if you will, tell everyone where you live currently.
I live in Iowa, actually. I live in a small town called Mount Vernon. And I always say it is a Norman Rockwell painting. It is the cutest, quaintest place I've ever been to in my life. So I'm very, very lucky to live here. Right now, we have about 2 or 3 feet of snow outside. So it's a winter wonderland here in Mount Vernon, Iowa.
Oh my gosh. Well, tell us how you got into Ayurveda and what that even means.
Okay, well, this is really interesting because I've always been into food. From the time I was a little girl, I loved cooking with my mom and my grandma, and I loved baking. And I did 4-H, which is a club here in Iowa where you learn how to do all kinds of house and farm kinds of stuff. And anyway, I never had heard of Ayurveda. Growing up, I became plant-based, vegetarian first, but really plant-based when I was 18 years old, which in Iowa, where there's a lot of pork and cattle and stuff like that, that's a very unusual thing back then. But I hadn't heard of it really too much until I got my yoga teacher training in 2016. And as soon as we started studying it as part of our yoga training, I just fell in love with it, and it just made so much sense to me. And it was kind of like all these light bulbs going off, like, wow, this is what I've needed to understand in my life to find that balance. Because we had talked a little bit about this the last time, Tyler, but I had eating disorders pretty severe at a very young age, 9 years old. And so I had struggled with that for a really long time and had kids, and kind of, I thought like we got over it. But then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is something else that I can use that makes so much more sense. And so Ayurveda is an ancient sister science to yoga. And it's really it's mostly based on food, but it's also based on the earth elements and doshas. So doshas correspond to different elements of the earth and different seasons, and then you base your routine and your food intake on the doshas. So I'm getting a little bit into the weeds on Ayurveda here, but that's really how I got into it, and I've been studying it pretty much ever since, and I do try to follow it as closely as I can.
When you speak about Ayurveda, there's such a compassion to this side of it. And coming from your background with an eating disorder, and it's like you found a way to make it not so hard on yourself. Like, this doesn't have to be that hard. And this is what really lights me up, because it's really speaking to a more balanced lifestyle. What is your dosha?
Well, I have a very complicated and unusual dosha, which is Vata and Kapha. So Vata corresponds to the earth element, the air element and ether. So Vata people are typically very lithe and thin, body-wise. Personality-wise, they're very creative, they're flighty, they've got a lot of energy. So very much kind of like wind. And Kapha is the opposite of that. So Kapha is the earth element. Kaphas tend to be, I think you came up with this phraseology for Kaphas, Tyler, large and in charge.
Oh, yeah.
So Kaphas are they're very grounded people. They're very sattvic. In yoga terms, they're very peaceful. They're very loving. They usually have large features. So Kaphas usually have big blue eyes and, long flowing, beautiful hair and gorgeous skin. And they're just chill people. So I am the opposite of the spectrums. And growing up, and I think honestly this is kind of where some of these eating disorder things came from. I always wanted to be vata. I always wanted to be very, very thin, but my body type just is not like that. And I actually have a son now who is kapha all the way, and his body type is, he's never been thin. He was born 8 pounds 1 ounce, and like literally 3 weeks later, I think he weighed 14 or 15 pounds or something crazy like that. And he's been kapha this entire time. And in fact, we used to call him meat sandwich. That's just how he is. He's never been thin a day in his life, and he won't be, because that's how his body is. And so I think, learning to accept these doshas and understand that that's okay, it has really helped me out tremendously. And I love to bring it to other people, because it really starts to help you understand yourself and accept that there are these 3 constitutions, and it's perfectly natural, and everyone's beautiful, and we can relish in that, instead of trying to, with I think our Western ideals, and certainly things that influenced me when I was growing up, instead of trying to, change all of that.
I love it because it is so much, and you bring this to it, an acceptance of who you are. Like, not trying to be anything else. Like, this is my dosha, this is who I am, and I'm going to own it. Where a lot of times in maybe perhaps Western society, there is an element to what you see versus who you are. And then trying to be that and going, wait, I'm never going to be that. That's not how I was born. Like literally let me work with what I got.
Yeah. I think I got the vata personality, so like the creative and lots of energy and ideas, and the kapha body type, but I'm also pretty chill person too. So it's a really interesting thing, and I'd love to help people discover that about themselves and then really lean into it.
Yeah. So this is cool because Ayurveda is such an ancient sister science. And you've kind of brought this modern acceptance piece. I will say you bring such a great acceptance piece to it. Like, not so hard on yourself. Like, if you freaking eat plant-based 1 time a week, and then we'll build onto it, because it's more you personally, I know that you bring in that, like, it doesn't have to be so hard. Let's just try it on. Because when you're creating a new habit, and you do this so well, it's not about taking something out. It's about putting something in its place, and then just doing that more and more and more. And what have you seen with your plant-based eating, and how it brings, an opportunity for you to meditate? Does it not make it better? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I love this topic. It's such a great topic. So I want to talk a little bit about prana. So prana is, in Sanskrit and in yoga and in Ayurveda, the life force. And one of the things that Ayurveda teaches is that we need to eat foods that are higher in prana, higher in energy, higher in vibration, because those are the foods that are going to give us and bring us the most health and nutrients and benefit. And of course, that's plants. So the things that are more alive are more full of prana. So what that isn't are things like, and it sounds crazy to say it out loud, but dead animals and animal products, they don't have a lot of prana. I would say that the exception to that is probably mother's milk, which is a whole other thing, but that is not, designed necessarily for everybody. Now in Ayurveda, mother's milk and cow's milk is acceptable. I'm not even going to get too far down the road on that, other than to say that, the way that we raise our cows, and I live in a place where this is, an industry, is not according to Ayurveda rules and things like that. So I think I'm getting off the beaten path here a little bit, but eating foods that are high in prana also gives you a spiritual, I think, energy. And to get back to what you were saying, it just, I don't know, it just frees you up to have that higher level of awareness and meditation. So there's just something about fueling your body and fueling your mind with these abundant plants that just makes you feel so incredibly great, and then gets you closer to source and to enlightenment through meditation.
You are somebody that I know that really does practice what they preach. And I know too that you've like, oh shit, I ate cheese this weekend, or like whatever it was,
Yeah.
right? Tell us what happens when that happens and what you notice about your body when you fall off the wagon and eat something perhaps it's not like according to your lifestyle.
Well, it's really interesting. I think with this, let's say cheese, one of the great things about plant-based diet is that you're naturally enhancing the biome in your gut. And so when you introduce something like cheese that you're not used to eating often, it's just going to be harder for you to digest. But I'm actually pretty forgiving of myself. And I think, everything, I truly believe this, like literally everything in moderation. For me personally, I'm not gonna, I don't love beef, let's say, so I'm not gonna eat that. But there's been an occasion or two, or maybe three, where I've had a salmon or something along those lines. And usually if I'm eating that in smaller portions and bites, I'm not gonna pay for it too crazily. My biggest vice is pizza. I love pizza. I love cheese on a pizza. So I had to be careful about that. But I think that, if you're forgiving, this is what I did, and tomorrow I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna have a smoothie if you're in pitta season, or a nice warm spiced oatmeal if you're in fast season.
Changing your diet changes your mindset, which changes your life.
Oh,
Crazy.
absolutely. Yeah. I think we just have a society of such extremes that we're just, unfortunately, we're just attuned to that. And that is why you see these keto diets or these paleo diets or those various different things that are so extreme. It's like, I can only do this, and that's the only way I'm going to be successful. And it's actually really counterintuitive, and it's counter to nature, which is not about extremes. If we lived in extreme weather conditions, let's say, we wouldn't survive. I mean, there's very few people that can survive in those kinds of conditions for day in and day out. So it's the same with food, and I think it's the same with routines, which also play well into the Ayurvedic lifestyle.
Routines. I love routine. I think routine saves me a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Okay, so you love all of this, and one of the things that Michael Lahoud that spoke at the beginning of the season, he was like, if you love what you do, success will come. Like, he's like, not for the accolades, not for the fame, just like that you love it. And I love that so much. And it sounds, and I know you so well, it's like, this is what you love to do. And you're so passionate about it. You're like, this is it. I love talking about it. I could talk about it forever. So you start this business, the Plantiful Pantry. I love the name. Tell us about that.
Okay. I started, really, really thinking a lot about this a year ago, almost to the date. And just somehow this idea of helping people learn how to live a plant-based lifestyle started really coming up for me. The other thing that came up was doing prepared foods, making plant-based foods, similar to, I think it has a lot more awareness now, something like Daily Harvest was what I was thinking, but with a local spin. So I live, not only do I live in a Norman Rockwell painting, but I also live in literally the most fertile agricultural land probably on the planet, is right here around where I live. And so I'm surrounded by this incredible, produce from our farmers. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could, help people eat plant-based and help them try to eat local? Because a lot of these services that are out there, they're not local. I'm not sure where they get their produce, but that was my idea. So that didn't get very far, because at the time I also was working in the corporate world and needed to try to figure out how do I actually run this business, do this business. And flash forward to you and I taking the maid to do this course together. And that was really where I started to figure it out and learn how to do it all. It was so interesting because, Kathy Heller, our mentor and teacher, she's so into building programs, and she's also into, an approach of serving others. And that's my approach 100%. So took that class and then got really busy on getting this business up and going, and partnered with you on our Ayurvedic intensive in the fall, and then formed a partnership with my friend Devin to launch the whole business. So that's what we're doing right now. We have our first program, a la Kathy Heller style, called Jumpstart. And we actually got that started just last week, and it's going really well. And we're teaching people step by step on how to dive into this plant-based lifestyle and why it's so very important to their health and their well-being.
I know that I love it, and that our intensive taught me so much about my own body and the things that I put into it and how I feel afterwards. What would you say to somebody this is kind of, a show about finding meditation practice and finding that beginner, ordinary people like you and me who live out in the real world, who really just are trying to seek some sort of betterment for ourselves, in a real way. Like, we got kids, we got freaking dogs pissing, we got like things happening. Like, we can't, always just go sit in a cave and eat this plant-based diet and meditate like we would want to, but we can't, we're not serving in that way, right? We weren't meant to. So somebody's listening to this show right now who's like, I always wanted to start a plant-based diet, but I don't even know where to start, or I don't know how to cook, or what would you tell them is like a good starting point maybe?
Mm-hmm. I would start with breakfast. I think that's the easiest thing to do. And it really is, it's actually a great self-care and awareness practice. So you can make any kind of breakfast really that's full of prana ahead. So for example, if it's pitta season, so it's hot out, you're going to want to eat foods that are colder, and especially in the morning, it's fine. That's where your smoothies come into play, and you can prep ahead, a nice smoothie. I put some fruit, some vegetables, some chia seeds, nuts, and a little bit of protein powder in a frozen packaged container. All I have to do is make that ahead, throw it in a blender, put some either water or plant-based milk in it, serve it up. And then when I'm serving that up, I'm thinking about, where did this food come from? How is this going to help my body? I'm really, mindful of, how does that taste? How do I feel? And that is a practice that if you just give yourself, honestly, 15 minutes in the morning to make a smoothie, you can have that experience, and it's really radical self-care, and it's going to start your day off so well. And I think that's another key about Ayurveda in general, is starting and ending your day with routines that bring you into the present moment and help you feel well throughout the day and then throughout the night. So, I mean, we could get into there's different times of the day that you do different things. And I loved all of that too, because the Vata, Pitta, Kapha applies to seasons, earth elements, times of day. So that's what you would do if you were Pitta. If you were like right now, we're in between Vata and Kapha season, so it's cold out. I don't recommend having a frozen iced cold smoothie in the morning because it's harder to digest, and it's counter to balancing out the cold that's in your body and outside. So I would recommend having a nice warm bowl of oatmeal. And again, you can make that ahead. You can do what's called overnight oats. Put oats and chia and plant-based milk, and of course warming spices like cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger or allspice into your just put it in a mason jar, soak it overnight, and then gently warm it up on the stove, and you've got this beautiful, warm, nurturing meal to have for yourself in the morning. If you do need to have something to drink, then you can make a smoothie, but just don't put ice in it, and serve it, barely cold, and it won't bring down your body temperature as much. So those are the practices that I think you start with, and then you just take it from there.
This is what I love about you. I get so jazzed up because it's so simple and it's so easy to incorporate something in the morning, instead of like here in Texas and San Antonio specifically, tacos. Oh my God, breakfast tacos are amazeballs, right?
Yeah.
But then I feel afterwards like, ugh, like I want to take a nap, right?
Yep.
And you guys, Mariah is actually my inspiration for going plant-based with my milk for my coffee. So back in October, I was feeling pretty lethargic after coffee and just kind of gross and foggy headed. And she recommended doing oat milk, which I had never tried. And it was a little tough of a transition at first because I was so used to putting heavy cream in the coffee. But then I started to realize that was making me foggy headed and tired, and I can't give up coffee. It's too much. But putting the oat milk in it tastes so real. And I'm like obsessed now. The way I feel is so much better. And it's something that I feel like I'm giving myself a little bit of self-care, and that no animals were harmed in the making in the morning. Like I don't even think about it.
Yeah, and oat milk is actually really good for the environment as well. So, I know people love almond milk, and, I love almond milk too, but the reality of almond milk is that, it requires pollination to produce the level of almonds that are needed for that milk. It requires so much water. I mean, it's just terribly harsh on our bee population and on our earth. So oat milk, the reason, I mean, first of all, it tastes amazing, like you said, but the second is oats are, in abundance. They're not that hard on the environment to produce, and they're just easy to enjoy all the time. So I love a good oat milk, and that is definitely my creamer of choice.
It's
Now,
just a start. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a start. Yeah. Well, and the great thing is, I mean, Starbucks has oat milk. That's what they prefer. And it's so, I know why, because oat milk goes really well with coffee. It froths really well. Like it just has the perfect consistency. That's a good substitute for milk, especially in like a latte or a drink.
Yeah. I hope people listening to this, just like with all the episodes that are coming out, just get inspired to take one little step. And by doing little things like this, by, getting out and getting more exercise, or just, starting a plant-based diet one day a week, something in the mornings, like you eliminate one little thing, and don't think of it as elimination, but more just a start to a new life. And you'll find yourself, what do you think for you? More free, Give me some words.
I think it's balance. I really do. I really do. And again, it comes back to prana.
Yeah.
It's putting that higher vibration energy into your body. Another thing about Ayurveda is, even if let's say I made the best salad on the planet, and I ate it 3 or 4 days later, that salad is not going to have the same level of energy and vibration as it will today when I make it. So the sooner that plant comes out of the ground, the better the energy, the higher level of the nutrients, all of those things. It's just a pretty simple but very common sense, logical thing to try to follow. And again, it's impossible to follow that all of the time. But the fresher you have the food, the higher the vibration, the better you're going to feel.
Yeah.
And that just applies across the board. So, don't feel terrible if you have a piece of steak or whatever, but just know that that's not as high a level of vibration of a food. And you've got to balance that out with something else that does have a higher vibration.
And I think feeling more balanced overall gives you that emotional well-being in the climate and the environment that we live in today.
Yes. There you go. Thank you for wrapping that thought off. That was perfect.
So I'm starving for some plant-based food. Where can I find you?
So I am on the plantifulpantry.com. And you can also find me and Devin on Facebook at the Plantiful Pantry Co. and Instagram, the same handle.
Thank you all so much for being here, and I just appreciate you so much. If you have any feedback or commentary about the show, you can email me at hello@tylergravely.com or message me at Tyler_Gravely on Instagram. I hope that you all have an awesome week. I really do. And that you stay open-minded and bringing all the possibilities of ease and freedom into your life this week. I'll talk to you soon.